So for our creative project, Jared and I decided to make a video kind of explaining our beats and detailing how we got some inspiration from Dilla in order to recreate some of his sounds or similar sounds. So this is just the introduction. There are going to be like 4 different clips of us showing you the songs that we each made. We each made 2. So I hope you guys enjoy and thank you so much for watching. So I made 2 beats on Pro Tools, and basically they're both in one session because I really liked how on some of the Slum Village albums or on J Dilla's own personal discography, some of the tracks transition really easily between each other, so I wanted to try and recreate that myself. The 2 samples that I used were J Busby Apple Cider and Heaven Earth Jenny. So I found both of these samples on this thing called Vinyl Archaeology, which is right here. It's a YouTube channel that they basically post old versions of songs or vinyl versions online. So I wanted to use like the sound of vinyl because that's like a classic trope of hip hop, but specifically Jay Dilla was big into like crate digging and using obscure records. Unfortunately, my record player broke, so I wasn't able to do it exactly in the same way, but I think I achieved a similar aesthetic. So Apple Cider is a 1960s like jazz blues song, and it has a lot of horns in it, which is a pretty like similar genre to some of the stuff that Dilla was using. So I really liked the horns and I used a lot of them, so I'll play you a sample of it. So I basically just chopped them up to fit within the beat. I made this made this drum sample on this Roland TR-8S that I have. So the kick sounds like this. And I tried to align my samples with that so that it followed the vocal line, because that's something that Dilla's done before in tracks, and I really liked that kind of vibe when the kick follows whatever's happening with the mix. And then on a separate track, I added in this hi-hat, and that's also a Roland hi-hat. So another thing that I did, so the song is originally called Apple Cider, and Jay Busby says that a lot in the song, but I chopped it up, so you'll hear it. Oh, whoops. If I unsolo them, you'll be able to hear it. So because of where that sits in the mix, I felt like it was kind of cool. On some of Jay Dilla's tracks, we talked about how he does vocal manipulation, so you can't really understand some of the words, or some of the words take on a different meaning or have a different understanding. So in here, it kind of sounds like sight of instead of cider, which I kind of liked. Around here, I did some tuning with the vocals. Which I thought was fun. So then right here is where the beat starts to change as it transitions into the second song. And then the final thing I did was tune these horns to fit the key of the second song so that I could create that kind of seamless transition between the two. So for the second track, it's a Heaven Earth song called Jenny, and I again found it on Vinyl Archaeology. And this one's a 70s folk song, and I remember we talked about how Dilla was a pretty big advocate for using different genres, not just jazz or blues, in order to sample in hip hop. So I am like a folk artist primarily, or I used to be, so I thought it would be kind of cool to use like a 70s folk song just to add my own flair into the mix. So the original track is pretty interesting. The thing that really caught my attention were these oohs, at the end of it. Oh, you can't hear it. So I was listening to this song Waves by on Donuts. And I really liked that like kind of repetitive ooh line, so I thought I could recreate something with this sample. So I created this this part right here. And I basically just pitched that and then EQ'd it a lot to kind of take out some of the instrumentation. So, yeah. The next thing I did in this track, there's a lot of fun electric guitar, so I also took some of that and then pitched that. All of this was in the key of G sharp because that's what fit best with the bass line. So I had to pitch everything and then slow it down to kind of fit with the beat. So it sounds a little bit off, but I kind of like the tension. It makes the bass line feel like it's kind of like fighting against the samples a little bit, which I think is something that's pretty reminiscent of a J Dilla track. Yeah, so. So I thought that was cool. And then if you add in the kick and the bass, you start to hear like the tension between them a little bit. So, and then yeah, the last thing I did was I took this like really cool guitar part that kind of swoops up at the beginning, and I panned that over to the left just to add some dynamics to it, or some breadth, I don't know. So yeah, so basically that's what it sounds like altogether. And then right here, I repeated the vocal line a little bit, and then I also added a break in the song because I kind of liked that idea. On some of Dilla's tracks, there's like a break in the beat, and the whole track goes silent, and so I wanted to kind of recreate that. I didn't do it very successfully, but you know, that's okay. Yeah.
For this first beat, I wanted it to be very simple, bare bones, something jazzy that a Tribe Called Quest would first use. So I first got my inspiration from this song by Joey Badass on his first mixtape, 1999. I was listening to it actually after the class where we were at the Clive Davis Institute learning about Dilla time, and I recognized the drumming. It sounded really familiar. For what we were learning in class, and I didn't know this at the time, but it was produced by J Dilla. So I wanted to recreate the drum beat, maybe make it change a little bit. This is the drum beat in the original song. Hey, what it is, one time, what up? So I recreated that and changed it up a little bit to make it into this. Next thing I did was find this song from John Coltrane on A Love Supreme, and it starts off with the bass line like this. And I chopped it up to make it into this. And that just loops. And the last thing I did was just take some vocal samples from Marvin Gaye's I Heard It Through the Grapevine, so this is interspersed throughout the song. that's essentially all I did. For this last beat, I took a lot of inspiration from the Twister on Donuts. I really liked how there were rhythm changes and a lot of abrupt changes in it, and how it was like a standalone beat, not necessarily meant for someone to rap to it, but a lot of vocal samples. What I originally did is I listened to Love and Happiness by Al Green, and I liked the tone of the guitar.
Love and happiness.
And I just used that last very soft guitar sample to just create this very easy, kind of very simple guitar chords. And then after that, like in the Twister, I wanted to get vocal samples, so I just took the opening lines from "Get Up, I Feel Like a Sex Machine" by James Brown, and just made it in time with the rhythm, and kind of made sense in the song. Just did this.
I'm ready to get up and do my thing. I want to get into it, man. You know, like a sex machine, man. Moving, doing it, you know.
And then I just took the drumming from Herbie Hancock. I sampled each of the individual, the kick, the hi-hats, the snares. I thought this was perfect. Right in the beginning of the song, it just has drumming, easily sampleable, great sounds. Obviously, it catches you right off the bat with the rhythm, so I just made that into this in the beginning. Didn't quantize this at all. I thought it would be very, as an homage to Dilla, you know, where he had a very humanistic touch with his drumming, and I tried doing it by hand, not quantizing at all. And it has like a human like kind of swing to it, and that was the outcome. For the second part, I wanted it to be abrupt, and the first part was slow, the pulse was slow, so I wanted this pulse to be very quick. I took guitar, it's like a very like attacking guitar from Superbad by James Brown, and just set it up so it sounds like this. And as you can hear in that, there's also a bongo in that sample, in that audio. And it lines up perfectly with the rhythm, and I thought that was really cool, so I just stuck with it. Use the same drumming, but a different rhythm, different setup, so that it comes out to this. It sounds pretty. So the drumming by itself sounds pretty weird. Once again, I didn't quantize, so it might sound a little weird out of rhythm, but the main thing that's driving the rhythm of the song is the guitar, and it helps that the bongos are in it. So when you put the drumming and the guitar and the bongos together, it sounds like this. So it sounds less weird, and I liked how we learned about the friction of rhythmic changes and differences in samples and how they might sound good together. So the drumming alone doesn't sound really in time, doesn't sound that good, but with the bongos and the attacking guitar, it does. And I took vocals from just the opening vocals from What's Happening, Brother, just because I thought it would be cool to have some nice vocals in there, an homage to Motown, Marvin Gaye. So I just put this in there. It gives it a nice loose feel to the song, and it gives it more of like a party kind of vibe. And the last thing I did was that I realized J Dilla used a lot of weird sounds and to give it some complexity, and I love the Beatles, so I wanted to somehow incorporate the Beatles into this, and they have a really weird song called Wild Honey Pie. It starts like this. I thought it would be a great sound to use, maybe it would work just to try it out, and it didn't sound too bad, so I just kept it in. Very weird, very attacking sound, but I thought it worked well with the last part, so I just chopped it up so it sounds like this. Obviously by itself, once again, doesn't sound good, but once again, incorporated into the beat, it works. It sounds very chaotic, but I think it works. And the last thing I did is I just wanted to incorporate some more Detroit and do an homage to how big the automobile industry was in Detroit, and I wanted to have like an old-timey feel. J.J. Dilla sampled a lot of old-time vocals, so I just added this into it.
See and drive the car with a look, the feel, the power of success. The 56 Dodge, value leader of the forward look.
And that's about it.